This video is to allow you to correct your homework for section 1.1.2, starting with problem 111. So they want you to find the perimeter and area of each figure, and they remind you that in your math notes box, which is in your ebook, but also in your toolkit, you can go back to that and it will give you some assistance in case you've forgotten things like what is the formula for area of a triangle, area of a trapezoid, or area of a parallelogram. So for this first figure, what I would want to see for perimeter is that you were adding the sides, because remember, perimeter is the rim. So I'd want to see that you took 6 inches plus 5 inches plus 7 and 5/10 inches and added them up. And of course, when we add decimals, we should line up the decimal. Remember that the number 6, if you don't see a decimal point, it is behind the number. So in terms of work, what I'd be looking for is to see, like, I took 6.0 and I added it to 5.0 and I added it to 7 and 5/10. Remember too that you can show that work in your notebook, because it might be difficult to do on your homework doc, and then you can just take a picture of it with your Chromebook. So in terms of work, I'd want to see, okay, well, when we add these numbers, we get 5. The decimal point comes straight down. 6 plus 5 is 11, plus 7 is 18. Put down the 8, carry the 1, and so we get 18 and 5/10 inches, for the perimeter. So that's how I'd want to see the work shown for perimeter. For the area, remember that the area of a triangle formula is 1/2 base times height, or base times height divided by 2. Either one will work. And so I'd want to see that you took the base, and I'm going to erase these so you can see where I'm getting this information from. I'd want to see that you took the base of 7 and 5/10 inches, multiplied by the height of 4 inches, and then divided by 2. Now you can put that in your calculator, but I want to see what you put in your calculator. The other way, again, you could do it is 1/2 base times height, which means half of 4 is 2. 2 times 7 and 5/10 inches. Either way, you get 15 square inches. Remember, the square inches is very important because that's the correct label for area. Area is how many square units does it take to fill the space, and perimeter is how many inches does it take to surround it or go around the rim. For B, again, for perimeter, I'd want to see that you added these units. If you want to use a calculator, that is okay, but make sure that you could do it without one if need be. But I want to see that those 4 units were added for perimeter. And then for area, remember, area of a trapezoid formula is base 1 plus base 2 divided by 2 times height, or base 1 plus base 2 times height divided by 2. In other words, remember that those last 2 steps can be interchanged. So you can divide by 2 first, and then multiply by the height, or you can multiply by the height and then divide by 2 at the end. HT is what I'm using to stand for height. Also remember that the math notes would probably have the formula as 1/2 times base 1 plus base 2 times height. And again, the reason it will have that is because that is the more traditional way of looking at this formula. But what I find is some students have a very difficult time multiplying by 1/2, especially if they're just able to use a 4-function calculator. Now, it can be done. Multiplying by 1/2 is the same as multiplying by the decimal 0.5. But I consider this formula to be a little more user-friendly. So that's why I give it to you in that format. And again, that should be in your toolkit. It can go into your 7th grade toolkit as well. But for here, again, there's nothing wrong with this formula. Both of these will work fine. But I want to see the work. So I want to see, again, what you put into the calculator, that you took one of the bases, like 12 centimeters, and the other base, 23 centimeters. And by the way, remember, we know that they are the bases because they are connected by a perpendicular. And that's how we determine the bases of a trapezoid, 2 parallel sides that then would be connected by the perpendicular. And then if that's one base, 12, the other base is 23, Then you would add them up, divide by 2, and multiply by height. And again, the height refers to the perpendicular height. So what I'd want to see for work here is 12 plus 23, which would be 35, divide by 2, which would be 17.5, times perpendicular height of 12. And what you end up getting then is 210 square centimeters. So again, I'm fine with you using a calculator for that, but make sure you have the right label and make sure you show me what you put into the calculator. I want to know that you understand the process. The other thing to be aware of is that, again, even though I'm not showing the work, you will lose points if I don't see the work, and taking a screenshot of what I'm showing you here will not count as the work. For C, you would want to find the perimeter again, which would be adding up the outside sides, 7 plus 4 plus 7 plus 4. And then for area of a parallelogram, its base times perpendicular height. So 7 times 4. I'm sorry, 7 times 3. The reason why 4 is not the base, and that's why I had the number 4 in my head, the reason 4 is not the base is because, again, it doesn't create a perpendicular to the opposite side. So we would use 7 as our base, even though it's on the side, and 3 as our perpendicular height. Remember, these shapes could be turned, so the base can be, like in this case, along the side. So for answers there, you should get 22 yards for the perimeter, and then 7 times 3 gives you 21 square yards for the area. Remember also that the way you can show square inches or square centimeters or square yards would be with an exponent of 2. So square inches could be written this way as well. I'm good with SQ inches or inches squared, the square being behind it. What we don't want to see is the 2 in front of the inches. And then here they just want you to think about games that you might remember playing, list some games that you've played, and then list whether they're fair, unfair, or not sure. So most games are probably set up to be fair. All right. Even if you say, hey, I'm playing against my dad with chess and he's much better than I am, so that's not fair. The game itself is set up to be fair. It's just that, he may have more skill. So most games are set up as fair. When they're talking about an unfair situation, they mean something like, okay, I'm going to spin a spinner, and on this spinner, most of the sections are going to be labeled, let's say, 1, and the smaller section is going to be labeled 2. So then if we spin a 1, I win, and if we spin a 2, you win. That would be an unfair game because it's set up inherently so that you would, lose because your section is so much smaller than my section is. But again, otherwise, most games are set up to be fair. And if you think it is unfair, why do you think it's unfair? And then for these, you're just going to predict what you think is more likely to happen, but don't forget to explain your reasoning. So, event 1, you'll win more than $1 million in a lottery sometimes in your life. Okay, well, that's obviously pretty rare. Event 2, you learn to speak a language you don't already know. So you might think that is also fairly rare, although in our district, maybe not, because we have, Spanish classes available to you. And in high school, you can even take through distance learning, maybe French classes or another language. So event 2 would certainly be more likely. So you would probably say, okay, the chance of winning $1 million in a lottery is incredibly rare. The chance of learning to speak a language we don't know is much more likely because we offer these different classes that allow you to learn to speak a language you may not already know. Then for B, your classmates will all wear the same kind of shoes on the same day, or your classmates will all eat the same thing for lunch on the same day. Now, again, both are pretty, rare, but which one is more likely? And probably that would be, again, event 2, because everybody's getting lunch, free lunch and breakfast this year. And even if they weren't, everyone might choose to eat hot lunch, and then they'd be eating pretty much the same thing. All right. Now, in terms of same kinds of shoes, most people choose different kinds of shoes to wear. So again, neither of them are very likely, but probably the second one is more likely. Again, even though I don't have an explanation here, you need to have some type of explanation. And then here, you're going to copy this onto your paper and then place your point on the number line. So if you want, you could put this in your notebook and take a picture. Or if you're really impressively skilled, you might want to make this number line right in your doc. It's up to you how you want to do it. But -4, of course, is located there. 3 would be located here. 5/10 is the same as 1/2. So 1/2 would be located halfway between 0 and 1. -3 and 5/10 would be the same as -3.5. So that would be located right here, halfway between -3 and -4. 0, of course, is located, and I'm going to make these different colors just so you can see them all. 0 is located there. 1 is located here. -2 is located here. And 5 is located here. So somehow you need to mark that you know where those would be located on a number line. And then Maria was playing a game with her brother. She said, I'm thinking of a number. When you multiply my number by 6 and add 7, you get 25. What's my number? So again, you have to find her number, but also explain how you figured it out. So I looked at it and said, okay, what number multiplied by 6 and then adding 7 gives me 25? Well, the way I would view it is, all right, if I take away the 7 first, then I have 6 times my number equaling 18. So then my number would have to be 3. But again, you don't have to do it that way. You might have said, okay, at first I tried 2, that didn't work. Then I tried 5, that was too big. And eventually I realized 6 times 3 was 18, plus 7 was 25. So again, however you figured it out is fine. I tend to think of it sort of algebraically because of the way, I have learned my mathematics. So once you're done, again, don't forget to hit submit with your homework.